I think we're going to come into a moment where you're going to see a real squeeze in silver. We saw the early innings, and it got to 30, but now we're above 30. And I think we're setting up for a doubling in the silver price, and it could happen at any moment.
Today's guest is a supporting sponsor of Liberty in Finance. Welcome back to Liberty in Finance. We're delighted to have this returning guest. Shawn Khunkhun is the CEO of Dolly Varden Silver, and he joins us this Wednesday, July 10th, 2024, live from the Rule Symposium on Natural Resource Investing here at the Boca Raton Resort in Boca Raton, Florida. Shawn, thanks for coming back on Liberty in Finance.
Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
Our viewers are always glad to have you back. Our last interview we did together just a few weeks ago, we got quite a few views, a lot of interest, and a lot of thumbs up. And people tell me in the comments and in between interviews that they really appreciate your down-to-earth approach and that they can relate to understanding, making it relatable what Dolly Varden is trying to accomplish and how it's going along the way and where you see things happening next. So that's just a natural progression. The first thing that I learned about, for those who are new, and we do have a lot of subscribers, I'm going to mention that again. You were pointing this out. We got this plaque, folks, from YouTube for surpassing the 100,000 subscriber mark. It's an honor for our channel, but really what it is, it's a testimony to our viewers for making sure that they're spreading the word among their friends and acquaintances. Folks, please do share this widely, and also the quality of the guests that we bring on. And I believe I learn as much or more than anyone because by understanding what true industry experts are doing, what they see as important, it helps us as prospective investors to understand what we should be paying attention to. So the way that I first met Dolly Varden was through Rick Rule and this conference several years ago. And one of the things that stood out to me on your booth originally was about high value deposits or high grade deposits. And that's something that Dolly Varden seems to continue to differentiate itself with. And you spoke with our audience last time we had you on about the deposits that you're working on right now at Defining Better, and would like to get, because I understand you got some new news in that regards, but first, if you could just remind us, how does Dolly Varden see itself as differentiated from other mining companies?
Okay. Again, thank you for your kind words and for having me on. I just want to say, I've gotten to know you over the last 3 years, and I've met your family, and I enjoy coming on the channel because I just feel like there's a lot of people that are creating content or, giving advice or sharing their experience, but I just, you're a good man, and we share similar values, and so it's just a pleasure to be in front of your audience. I'm very grateful, and but getting back to your question, I've been in the mining industry for 20 years, and I have been surrounded by, mining is a tough business. It's capital intensive. Commodity prices are volatile. It's a cyclical business, and it takes a particular type of entrepreneur who is relentless, tireless. It takes good science. It takes patience. And so I learned from some incredible mentors and teachers. And there's some extraordinary people that attend this conference and that advance projects. And they're people that not only are they incredible entrepreneurs, but they have a love and appreciation for nature. And the way that the mining companies interact with the communities that they bring wealth creating opportunities to, and the way they try to do this with minimal disturbance, it's a beautiful art. And, for me, one of the things I recognized was miners mine ore. And where I saw to find an opportunity was to try to source that future ore for the miner in exploration. And really, what I had recognized was if I could come at this at a time when we were at the bottom of a cycle, I could potentially accumulate a lot of ore for my shareholders at low prices and through some really good science and with some good prospectivity and, prospective land position in the right area. So I wanted, grade is something where if you have grade, it works almost in any price environment. You don't need to be in a bull market. You don't need to have all-time highs in metal prices. So I wanted to focus on grade, and I didn't want to take jurisdiction risk. I thought of it as I want a project that I could bring my family to and feel safe and comfortable. And so in Canada, in my backyard, I started pursuing an opportunity to build a big silver mining company in what's known as the Golden Triangle. And the Golden Triangle is known for the gold because it's some of the highest grade and highest concentrations of gold anywhere in the world. But what's not talked about is the 1.2 billion ounces of silver. And it's not talked about because gold is 77 times more valuable than silver today. I think that might change. Mm-hmm. And we've already seen that ratio go from 125 to 1 back in March of 2020 to where it is today. So that's my business model. And my business model is to try to increase our mineral inventory. And I think the value of that inventory is going to be worth more in the future than it is today. And if you look at the last 4 years, we've seen silver prices go from $16 to almost a clear double at almost 32. And the ounces that Dolly Varden has in the ground have gone from being valued at 40 cents an ounce in the ground to about $1.50. And if you multiply that by the 140 million ounces that we've outlined to date, that's significant. It equates to hundreds of millions of dollars in the value of the company. And so my shareholders who got behind me at day one, which was February 18th, 2020, they've seen a nice increase in the value of their share price. But I think there's a lot more to be found. And I think that we're in the early innings of this precious metals market for gold and silver. So I hope that explains, the idea here. The idea is to try to bring up as much quality, high-grade, economic, mineable silver in a safe jurisdiction, and at the appropriate time in the future, allow a miner to come in and develop the project.
And the last time that we spoke, you were describing that something that's rather unique about the nature, the geology of the deposit that you're exploring, and a reasonable hope held by Rick and maybe some others that there may be more to it than the surface accessible portions of it that you've been able to drill so far. And I understand you've got some new drill results. I don't know what they are yet. Could you share that and bring me and our
Sure.
audience up to date?
So I got to take you back to the old historic Dolly Varden Silver Mine. And it was the richest in the era, the richest silver mine in the British Empire when it was in production in 1919. And then there's a neighboring mine called the Torbert Mine, which we also own. We own both past producing mines on the property. And the Torbert Mine produced 20 million ounces at 466 grams per ton, very rich ore. It was Canada's third largest silver mine, and it produced from 1949 to 1959. What we've identified, we've got a 15-kilometer trend. And what we're understanding is that along this trend, every 1.4 kilometers, there seems to be another deposit. And we validated this idea recently with the Moose vein results and the Chance vein results. And what's interesting, Dunnigan, is Chance is 1.4 kilometers from Moose. And Moose is 1.4 kilometers from Wolf, and Wolf is 1.4 kilometers from Torbert. And so we've got a gap in between Chance and Homestake that's significant, kilometers wide. So we have an opportunity to find many more deposits. One of the questions Rick is looking for us to answer, one of the unanswered questions, is, are some of these deposits connected? And up at Homestake, I think we're going to be able to validate that idea this year. So we've got a drill rig up there. We've got 2 rigs at the Wolf, but the results are coming out in the kilos. So at the Moose, we found 3,600 gram per ton silver in drilling. And so there's exceptionally high grade. Why Dolly Varden is so unique is only 28% of the world's silver comes from mines like Dolly, primary silver mines. Mm-hmm. So already we're in a rare category of company. But the fact that this project is not in countries that you traditionally find these mines, like Mexico, or Peru or Argentina, and the challenge with some of these other jurisdictions is the governments and the local communities are putting a lot of resistance and opposition. Whereas in Canada, we've got long established mining laws. We have communities that participate with benefit agreements and participate. We have strict environmental laws and codes, and we try to mitigate and minimize, some of the things that happen in some operations. So my point in all this is, I think I describe Dolly Varden as a unicorn because it's a unique company amongst a rare group of companies. It's growing. So most companies, they're forced to acquire because they can't organically grow. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, we can organically grow, that's the best way to grow a company. Mm-hmm. It's low cost. And so, we've seen a tremendous move in our share price, but the numbers that I'm looking at is this. I think will be valued for at least $4 an ounce of silver in the ground. And that's not even pricing in higher silver prices. I just think that's the value that this project is going to trade at. We've got 150 million ounces in the ground. That's a $600 million value proposition for a company that's trading at less than $300 million value today. But the question is, if we're able to increase the resource from 150 million to 200, now that's an $800 million company, to 250 million ounces of silver in the ground. Now that's $1 billion company. So when I first came in here, in US dollars, this was a $15 million company. And it's valued at around 200 and it's 315 Canadian. If I were to do the math, it probably pegs it around maybe 250 to 275 US. So we're part of the way through that process. And the other thing in the mining industry is it's kind of binary for these explorcos. You either have it or you don't. You either have something that's economic or you're trying to find it. And it's really hard to find it. Once you do have it, what I've learned from those mentors in the business and in the industry is you make your money by averaging up. So when a project's working, you continue to invest in it. And, and that's, so I really feel like this is an opportunity where, and we've been validated by companies like Hecla and investors like Eric Sprott and institutions like Fidelity, who've done a tremendous amount of due diligence and since I've taken over, I've raised about $90 million with these astute precious metals investors. And so this is a summer where we've got 3 drills turning. How we drive value in our company is by finding more. Mm-hmm. So the opportunity to find more is through the discovery-oriented drill program that we're in the middle of. So 24 hours a day, these 3 rigs are turning. We have a team of 48 scientists up at site, looking, tracking, expanding, extending, and discovering silver. And we're going to be reporting regularly. And, in 2022 and in 2023, in one of the richest parts of our planet for gold and silver mineralization, Dolly Varden Silver had the best drill results in all of the Golden Triangle back-to-back years. So we're hoping to repeat that success. And, we've got a clean balance sheet, no debt, 18 million in the bank. And, I get calls almost daily from institutional shareholders saying, if you need more money, if you'd like more money, we'd like some exposure. And I've been telling those shareholders to go into the market, and that's what's been putting the share price higher. But at some point, maybe we decide if it's the right investor, we do a treasury offering, and we get even more aggressive in the field. And we add rigs, we add meters, and we, if we're validated with more successful drilling.
It's interesting because our viewers and subscribers have been knowing for some time about the psychological and practical advantages of doing this incremental purchasing of, for example, bullion, cost averaging, because if you try to time the cycles just exactly and pick tops and pick bottoms and all that stuff, you can waste a lot of your energy on anxiety about fear of missing out or fear of being caught in or whatever, rather than just knowing that you're strategically accumulating an asset that's going to be lasting for your family. In this case, I can understand from Rick's educating us on answering unanswered questions, as you said, that as a company goes through the right diligence of their resource and answers those unanswered questions, the overall risk, financial risk, goes down, down, down if the answers come back, to the affirmative, to the direction that guiding prudent progress and what's happening. So for investors to continually take additional stakes in a company that's making that kind of progress in the direction of proving out a resource makes all the sense in the world. Everybody would like to wish, I wish I owned this back when it was, a penny stock or whatever. It's like, well, think of the uncertainty that existed back then. And then as the science and the practice and the engineering and maybe a little bit of luck, pan out, the chance that you're investing in the right direction becomes more and more certain as you go. So it justifies a higher and higher stake from investors' nest egg. So that makes perfect sense to our circle of investors. And you still haven't spilled the beans about the most recent drill results that you just said you just had since our last talk.
So the Chance vein reported over 200 grams of silver over 23 meters. And the Moose vein reported 977 grams of silver over 5 meters. And so these are, tremendous. And these are the first 2 drill holes of the campaign. And we've done over 30 more to date. So we have a lot of results that are pending. So those are the results.
I think I've seen on the Dolly Varden website sometimes photos of some of the cores and some of them you can see visually some of the mineralization in there. So it's remarkable.
Absolutely. We see native silver, which is returning, we're getting the kilo grades. Listen, the other thing is we have to consider when we look at these companies, like silver today at $30 is less expensive than it was when it was trading at $4 in the past. So getting our head around that, and the idea that Dolly Varden is a less expensive proposition today, knowing what we know about the project, the increase of the mineral inventory, the value of the metal, it's actually been de-risked. And so these are difficult concepts to understand when we just look at things in their nominal terms.
Right.
But if you look at them on a relative basis, and what's so exciting is if you take the silver industry and you take the 800 or so million ounces that the industry will mine this year, and you multiply that 800 million by $30 silver, spot silver, it's about $24 billion. A stock like NVIDIA will trade $17 or $18 billion in a trading day. What excites me about where we are in the precious metals market is the fact that it's underowned. And it's the fact that there's going to be money that moves from other sectors that have, done very, very well over the last number of years and starts coming into real money, real assets, real things. And that is going to, some people describe it as pouring a whiskey bottle into a shot glass.
Right.
And we've seen that and that goes back to the boom and bust nature of the commodity industry. And we've been in a bust for a decade. It's been very difficult. The other thing that's happened is with silver going from 25 to 30 in recent months, almost every silver miner can now make money. The silver miners that were going out of business in September and October, and there were many, are now profitable. Where are they going to redeploy and reinvest those profits? On trying to secure future mine supply, the next development project in their pipeline. And so we've come as an industry in 2023. It was one of the worst years in the last 100. If you go back a decade to 2013, there was $6 billion raised through brokered financings for the industry. $6 billion. Last year, there was less than $2 billion. And 2013 was a year gold fell. Gold fell from 1,500 to 1,300 in one day in April of 2013. So I'm comparing 2023 to one of the worst years in the last 30, 2013. If I compared it to a time where gold was breaking out to 1,900 in 2011, or silver breaking out to 49, and we had a lot more capital going to these. So these mining companies have been starved. So what really highlights Dolly's success is that we were able to build a company during a depression for junior mining. And we're now positioned as we spring into this new paradigm, this new universe where you've got silver. If you take out the old highs, we're essentially trading at an all-time high here. And I don't see any overhead resistance. And I really think it needs to get into the 70s to be relative value to everything else that's out there.
Yeah, silver is often portrayed as the most underpriced asset out there. If you look at the COMEX chart, we recently interviewed Ed Steer, a compatriot of Ted Butler's for long decades, and it's the most shorted asset on the COMEX, for one thing, and in terms of relative to days of annual production, that sort of thing. So it's remarkable how many of these factors, as you pointed out, are combined, and they're multiplicative in some ways. If you look at the playing out of this in terms of just finding more research, finding more ounces in the ground, demonstrating the high grade of those ounces, making sure that you've got the backing and the jurisdiction that's going to allow you to get rapidly make those accessible, and then the price action that's likely to happen in a market where the whole world, not just the metals market, but the whole world is turning towards real things. We have the BRICS plus nations pivoting towards commodities of all types, sort of thing.
You look at the demand that's coming out of India.
Yeah.
And you look at the fact that the average Indian, and there's more average Indians now, as you look at the growth of the middle class in both China and India. But the average Indian consumer is getting priced out of gold in rupees. It's just unattainable. So in Q1 of this year, the Indian consumer and the solar sector made up a third of all silver demand. And what's really interesting going forward, if we've been running deficits year after year, hundreds of millions of ounces of deficit in silver on an annual basis. And you look at the fact that only a quarter of our production comes from primary silver mines. My fear is, as it becomes, the number one supplier of silver is copper mines. But if you look at some of the copper mines like Cobre Panama and others that have been disrupted, and you look at how long, and like if I were to make a copper discovery today, it would be 30 years. If I was lucky enough to make a copper discovery today, it would be 30 years before that mine came into production. And the capital costs are in the tens of billions. And so my point here is, if the number one supplier of silver is copper mines, and we're running into a copper deficit, and then beyond that, you can't just throw money at the problem, because the primary silver mines, a lot of the ones that are existing, are deep, they're narrow, and they would require tens of billions of dollars and years of permitting. So I think we're going to come into a moment where you're going to see a real squeeze in silver. We saw the early innings, and it got to 30, but now we're above 30. And I think we're setting up for a doubling in the silver price, and it could happen at any moment.
Well, Shawn, it's a fascinating time. It's been a long journey for those who've been holding on since 2012 or so. With the metals that we have, we talk to bullion investors every day who have been on this kind of a long road. Although the turning point really was December of 2015, and we've been on a recovery for the bullion since then. But it still doesn't reflect the devaluation of the currency as it should and as it must and as it historically always has eventually. So there's a lot to come, and we're just grateful to have Dolly Varden here to be a partner with Liberty and Finance and to keep the news flow in front of our viewers and subscribers. And we look forward to our next opportunity to get an update. And what we'll do is solicit questions ahead of that from our audience. You guys are always so great at submitting very meaningful, and I've been really impressed with the level of sophistication and specificity of the questions that have been submitted. And I know we all want to know when silver price is going to significantly move up again, as it just did in the last quarter. But beyond that, there's lots of questions that people have, and we'll gather those next time before we talk so that we can address those, as well as just the news flow that keeps coming from Dolly Varden. So the best of fortune to you in your scientifically based, geologically informed, and hopefully continued lucky exploration activities along this apparent pattern of deposits that Mother Nature has left in your path. And all fingers crossed here for more good news to come. And we'll like to hear back from you when you can.
Look forward to that. Thank you so much for having me on.
Likewise.
Okay. Take care.